Today, we get to welcome our new friends, Diesel Auto Power, to the build as a sponsor. They got us set up with some 150 horsepower sack injectors, and we are about to do an install video on them for you. Not only did they get us hooked up with the injectors, they even put Super Dwarf on them. So we'll get some good B-roll of that before we stick it in there and you don't see them again. Now, as you will have noticed, we have already started this project. And if you watched the last video, you will know why all of this is about. But we are in the process of doing the power steering pump as well. And that's why we kind of paired these two together. Because you will have to take off your intake horn that sits up here. The part behind you on the desk there, for the workbench. You're going to pull that off. And then your throttle position sensor that sits right up there, you're going to pull those 3 bolts out, get it out of the way. We got our grid heater over here as well. And then your 2 electrical connectors you'll have to worry about. You got this gray plug here. That sits on the bottom of your throttle position sensor here. And then this big black plug, that one right there, plugs in right here to the back of your VP44. The reason you got to take that off is because we are now going after, come over here, we are now going after all of those injector lines right there. We're going to pull the bottom 3 off, and then we're going to get our lines up here at the top, and then this first set of rails will come off, and then we will have access to that second set of rails back there. Then we will move up to the valve cover and go from there. Pulling off those supports I was telling you about before we loosen everything else up. Depending on your truck and what's been done to it, you may or may not have all of them. Lots of trucks are missing the one in the back there. So when I bought this truck, the VP and these fuel lines all look brand new. So it does appear that we have all 5 of our support bracket bolts. You got 1 on the front, you got 1 in the middle, 2 in the middle there, right where he's dealing with, and then there's 2 all in the back. That is going to be our final support bolt that he's working on there in the back. Now we're going to loosen up all 6 lines from the head. Please get those started. And this is a 19mm wrench we're using. Ideally, you would get line wrenches, but we don't have line wrenches, so 19 it is. Alright, I'm not afraid you're going to be able to see it. The number 6 injector, there it is tucked so far back in there. Just get ready to have yourself one heck of a time trying to reach it, and be very gentle when you pull it out of the hole. You don't want to bump the copper on like the edge of the injector housing, like tube thing where it lives, because then you run the risk of bumping it off. And trying to fish it out of the number 6 cylinder, the little copper washer, is just a nightmare. Little brother here says we're actually going to go ahead and remove the valve cover. He thinks that'll give him better access to that back line there. And the bolts on the top of the valve cover here are going to be a 15mm.
I hadn't looked at your story, so I don't know what it is.
And now we are ready to pull the valve cover off. It's going to kind of get snaked out of the driver's side, just like so. Now your last 2 bolts in the cover are going to stay there, so you might have to kind of get your finger under there and lift them up just to weave them around your valve train. Also, try tipping the front end of the valve cover down here to get the back end up over there. Well, it comes right out in the video. We'll get it eventually. You'll get it yourself. Just slow and steady, don't break anything. Alrighty, real time, like 5 minutes later. That was far more difficult than any video I've found of pulling it out. And that also helps you kind of see. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the flashlight lights up 6. Way off in the back there. Alrighty, number 6 injector line way back in there is disconnected from the head. Removing your valve cover first is definitely the move on that one. And now we are down here, which you'll see in just a moment, at the base of the injector lines, taking those off. Alright, and for these ones, zoom in just a hair. You take them off one by one, and then once you slide the nut head thing over, it allows plenty of clearance for your tool to get back in there. Actually gonna go the other direction and get the bottom two. That way our front set of lines can come out first. But we will get all of these loose and update when one of the lines comes out. So now we're trying to figure out how to get to the lowest injector line right back between there for the number 3 cylinder. Conveniently, every single instruction video skips over how to get that line. You can see it down in there. We are still trying to figure out how to get a tool in there. Just currently, it is completely inaccessible. Alrighty, our tool that got us that bottom line is going to be our fairly small size crescent wrench. And I can zoom in here. You'll see it in action.
It might have gotten skinnier, but it fits. I promise. Somewhere down there. There it is. Yeah.
There we go. Alrighty, the video saw a quarter turn.
Once you do...
We're going to keep fighting with that, and then we will come back when these lines start to come out. Nope, is it free spinning?
Yeah, once you... These ones are pretty easy. You loosen them just a little bit, and they should be fairly free spinning.
Well, that means our front lines here should lift up and out.
That is up and out.
Very nice. And now, it gives us a lot more access to the last 3. And then all of our injector lines will be out. Alrighty, so the lowest one and the farthest back one there are both a total pain in the butt. We have been working on this one for like 30 minutes now. And even though it's spun a couple times, it is not just freely spinning loose like the rest of them. So he's having to very slowly wedge it little by little until it eventually comes off. I missed the record button, of course, but 30 minutes later, the second set of injector lines are out. Now we can start on actually doing our injectors themselves. Now our next step is we're going to pull out our connecting tubes there. They are just seated by an O-ring, so we should just be able to take some needle nose pliers in there and gently pop it out. Try the flathead method. On the threads there. Slowly. Oh. Every video they just pop right out, and then we go to do it, and then they're just going to be all stuck down in there. Hold on.
I'm about to ruin this shit. I'm going.
I need a light too, actually. Where'd the flashlight go? Alright, now for pulling the injectors, we're going to go for this bolt right here, and we're going to leave that inner one there. That part looks like this. So it just sits down in like so, and this one bolt is the only one we take out. Just pull that out. Then it shows us the top of the injector there. Where we will take, where the bolt went, one of our valve cover bolts, and that will thread right into the top. If you come over to this other side here real quick. You also have to pull out the connecting tube right here. You can just take a flathead, stick it in there, and pop it out. You don't have to pull it all the way out. But that does sit inside your injector, so you can't pull the injector until you pop that out. And it's just one singular O-ring. Come back over here. And then this injector should just pop out. Pause. And then you will also want to make sure that that copper washer comes off with it. You get new supplied ones with it.
Can't see anything with that.
So once you pull it out here, you want to make sure that that copper ring there comes off with every single one of them. You'll get brand new ones with your injectors, and if you double those up, it will leak and cause a mess.
I'm going.
Alright, we got our bolt threaded into our new injector here, and you will notice the hole here on the side. That is going to line up with your connecting tube right here, and it is not in line with your groove on the top. So you can't line it up with that. You gotta get a pretty good eyeball mark right there before you set the injector down in. Also, take a smidge of oil and go around your O-ring here. New oil, old oil, makes no difference. Take our tube, generally line it up. Or come back over here and watch you sit. Alright, so we're going to take our hole, generally line it up here. Pull this out. On the bottom of the injector hold down, you do have this little thing that sticks out that fits in the groove of your injector there. It's just loosely having it placed. You can kind of get it down and help kind of center your injector with this piece. well, I can't do it. So one of these tall people will push this down in there. We'll try and continue. This is super light and has no weight to it.
I made it light so for a reason. One, it fits you.
You going?
Yes.
Well, you tall people should just be able to click this down in here. But it's not working for me, so. Well, that's not working. You people are going to have to do. Alrighty, number 6 injector came out, and it even did so with the copper on it. Because trying to fish copper out of the very back there is not an easy task at all. Now we just got to get that new one back in there with the copper, nice and situated, and all will be well.
First.
Okay.
At this point, we have all 6 of these ones are on and tight. All 6 of these are threaded in. 4 of them are hand tight. I still got to do the back 2. And I'm putting all those support things here. So.
It is a new day, and this install hasn't really gone how I planned as far as what all I thought I was going to be able to do. But we are now reassembling. We just did our oil pressure sensor. That's been bad for years now. And we started on the injector lines. And I went inside to use the restroom real quick. And then I came back out to be told that everything is going back together far smoother than it came apart. Alright, now the way we started these was the back lines first, obviously. And we started threading it in at the top by the connecting tubes. And then we put in the little supports in the middle and on the back there. Then came in and got the first 3 attached to the VP. Then came in, repeated the same steps, threaded them in at the top there for the front lines, then the supports, then tightened those 3 lines up. So everything down here at the VP is good. And now we're just threading in at the connecting tubes a little bit more until we get to the point where we will take the top of our injector nut there and our injector line, and we will snug them up little by little, injector, then injector line, then injector line, until your injector line is nice and tight. That way they sit together nice and evenly. And then we are going to re-loosen the first one and the third one when we're done there. And once we put everything else back together, that is how we will prime the truck. Once we get fuel from there and there, first and third lines, then we will tighten those back up, and then we will finally be done. Alrighty, so we are now at the final tightening sequence of the injector lines and the injectors. So you're going to go for the bolt on the top of your injector. There, he's pointing out the ratchet. And then you're going to get your 19 on your injector line there. And then you will just tighten the injector line a smidge, then tighten your injector. Then your injector line a smidge, then your injector. And your injectors don't go crazy tight. So we're talking just a little snug on each one until they both pretty much bottom out.
Those are pretty much already there, I can't lie.
Let's check it one more time. Now you can go ahead and snake your valve cover back in there. Usually a fun task, that one.
Devin, I'm fucking amazing.
2 hours later. Let's make sure our gasket is sitting nice and happy after we were fumbling all around. And get those, what size were they?
It's a 15 millimeter.
15 millimeters, all tightened down. Alright, now that our valve cover is nice and tight, we're going to take our big black connector there and get it secured to the back of the VP44.
Because I didn't do any of this.
It goes in far enough until that safety clip there can get pushed back in.
You don't have to completely video me struggling, you know?
No, they need to see that this is actually way harder than any instruction video out there.
Well, that's probably pretty clipped in. All right.
Now, we are going to take our throttle position sensor, get our gray connector down there, plugged into the bottom of it, and resecure it back with the 3, I believe, 10 millimeter bolts. I think I heard it click, doesn't go in there super far. Correction, they're actually a, what did you say, 14?
13.
13. They're a 13 millimeter. Now we're going to pull our yellow rag from our intake hole there, set our grid heater back in its spot, not forgetting the gasket that goes on top of it between the grid heater and the intake horn. Yeah, the lower gasket's still sitting in its spot.
Okay.
Oh, under the dipstick.
Does this go here? And
Now we got our intake horn to go on top of it. You want to stick it in the intercooler boot side first, then try and line your gaskets up. So I forgot to have him plug in the VP44 tap. So now the intake horn has to come off, and the throttle position sensor again. Now that we have access to our blue pump tap wire, we're just going to take this wire and go under the throttle position sensor like so. And then it will go right into, once he's down there.
There we go. And that is properly in.
Yep, nice and easy does it. Our tap is reinstalled. So now we'll do the throttle position sensor, grid heater, and intake horn one more time. Alright, now that that stuff is corrected, we are tightening up our boost sensor right there. Then we just got to stick our dipstick up in there where it goes. Then all we got to do is crack lines 1 and 3. See if we can get this thing to start. So he is now breaking loose the number 3, and we already have number 1 loose, and we will go in and get the truck. We'll let the fuel system just run for a minute, and then we will try to turn it over. It'll probably hesitate for a little bit, and then we'll see some fuel squirt out of those lines, and it should want to fire right up. And then we'll just snug up the lines, and we'll be all good. All right, you ready out there?
So what? See if it's spitting out diesel?
Yeah.
I haven't been ready.
Okay. Moment of truth. Here we go.
It's coming out of both, just significantly more on a third. I think I backed that one out more regardless of whether it was
Okay.
or not.
Go ahead and tighten them down.
Okay.
Alrighty, lines are tight. Let's see if she starts. Come on, you can do it! It's been sitting in the cold for a week. Let's try again. Huh. Why won't you start, truck? It took another 4 or 5 times of getting it to crank over, and we had to loosen the 4th and then the 5th as well injector line. But it did indeed fire up. We got solid fuel pressure from the air dog, and even our oil pressure sensor that has been down for years is running again. So we will let our alternator charge the battery up here a bit, and then I gotta go get power steering fluid to top it off before we can pull this thing out. Well, we just found out after getting it started that in our other video, the power steering pump we just replaced, the vacuum pump is now pissing oil everywhere. So we get to pull it all apart and do everything over again. Alrighty, 2 days into the future, we finally have that vacuum situation corrected. Well, at least we think. Now we are getting the Cummins charged up with a little Dakota here. And we will finally get to turn it on again and see if we did actually get that leak fixed. Then, of course, we will have to go take it for a rip and see how the new injectors do. This clip was supposed to be of the truck on a dyno, so we could get the actual numbers of how much horsepower we've truly gained for our 150 horsepower injectors. But unfortunately, the dyno had some sort of an issue, the line got super long and we never got our turn. So you'll just have to take my word for it and know that as far as the butt dyno goes, it is substantially more powerful. Here over on the boost gauge, even on its very best day, it might have hit 27, maybe, but usually it's 25 on a good day. Now we can hit a consistent 30 psi and blow the gate wide open every single time. So we can even adjust the gate and then get more psi out of it. But 30 is going to be just fine for what's done to our trans at the moment. As far as fuel mileage, we actually have been on an entire road trip. We did Denver to Tennessee and back. I didn't do any proper hand calculations because if you're doing injectors on your Cummins, what are you really concerned about that for? But up on our Lyometer, the truck capped at 24.7 the way it was before. With the retune and injectors, we now hit 25.6, and that would have continued going up had we continued driving. So I'll edit that in there now. So since I don't have a dyno sheet to prove it to you, I guess we're going to do some pulls on the proper tune here and show you the boost gauge and how we are getting our consistent 30-ish psi. And then we will get the camera outside of the truck and we will turn it all the way up, give it all the fuel it has to offer, and give you a little bit of a smoke show because that's entertaining in appropriate circumstances. And then I'm still going to try and get this thing on a dyno as quickly as possible so we can have some actual numbers. But so far, so good. Oh, the only one downside I've found so far is when the truck is cold, particularly, if you accidentally jab the throttle too hard at very low speeds, it will shut off. It does fire right back up, but I only had it happen to me one time. I stopped and to bump over the transition in our driveway, I slowed down too much, so that little drop of throttle, it made it shut off. But it's a very, very minute little problem. So outside of pulling it in and out of the driveway when it's really cold, I've yet to have an issue. But other than that, so far so good.
Good to go.
We didn't quite hit 30, that was 29, but we are in Denver, Colorado at quite a bit of elevation, and the truck runs noticeably different up here compared to anywhere else. So we will turn it up just a smidge and then see if we can't hit that 30. Couple quick taps on the Quadzilla, and we will see what it'll do now. Switch it to the other two in here, it's not exactly going to do that. We'll have to take a better look behind us because it will leave a trail for sure. It still drives really, really clean to start out with. And when our cruising speed, lock up, slow down. I don't know how well that will convey to you guys on camera, how much more smoke comes out on the bigger tune, but there's quite a bit. So if you're on a stock turbo and you turn it all the way up, you will need to keep an eye on that EGT gauge, but it can be tuned so that it drives great and whatnot until you upgrade your turbo. Even on the big tune, if you just drive it normally, it's still very clean. It'll smoke at stoplights a little bit, but if you put it on the proper tune, that completely goes away. So, 150 horsepower injectors are indeed drivable on your stock turbo, and there's plenty of fuel to grow into when you want to get that bigger turbo, which is exactly what I intend on doing. So, here pretty soon, we're going to get some dyno numbers with just the injectors. Then we can hopefully get that turbo swapped in, and then of course put it back on the dyno and see where we're at with them together. But that about does that. I hope the install portion did you something decent, because it didn't turn out how I planned at all. But sometimes in life that is how it goes. Make sure we don't crash here real quick. This is why I don't really do gas comparisons, because that's how the truck is either on a road trip or it's stoplight to stoplight, and then it just idles forever. Another huge shout out to Diesel Auto Power. Thank you for joining the build. I'm definitely looking forward to that turbo we got in the works. And thank you if you've made it this far in the video. It doesn't happen for me very often yet, but your viewership is very much appreciated.